What's going on, guys? Britta back, and we are working on the accessibility by building a quiz project, and we are on step 20. It is important to link each input to the corresponding label element. This provides assistive technology users with a visual reference to the input. This is done by giving the label a for attribute, which contains the ID of the input. This section will take a student's name, email, address, and date of birth. Give the label elements appropriate for attributes as well as text content. Then link the input elements to the corresponding elements. Alright, so we're going to do label for, what is this? Name. So we're just going to do Britta. Wait a second, no, that's not right. You put name. Yep, like that. Alright. And then label for email. Label for, what was the last one? Date of birth. I'm just going to put, I think this has to be separated like that, so date of birth. Okay. Then link the input elements to the corresponding label. So input for name. Is that right? Let's make this lowercase. Let's see if that worked. You should give the first input an ID, input ID. Okay. So input ID, email. Input ID, date of birth. Alright, on to the next one. Keeping in mind best practices for form inputs, give each input an appropriate type and name attribute. Then give the first input a placeholder attribute. So we give each input, so we're going to do input type equals, and I don't know what to put there. Type equals number. No. This one I think is email. This one is, I don't know. This one should be type equals date, I think. A type and a name. You should give the first input an appropriate name attribute. Input ID, input type, input name. I don't think that's right. Input type. That's not right. So let's see here. Let's do a new window. Drag this over here. Input type attribute. When I see it, I'll know. Let's see. So this just needs to be text and yeah, date is what we should do for birthday if we want month, day, and year. So let's check that. You should give the first input an appropriate name. Okay, so now we need a name. Now should the name just be name? I don't know if that's right. Email. feel like this is kind of duplicating stuff. Date of birth. You should give the first input a placeholder attribute. A placeholder attribute. Did it tell me to do that? Okay. An appropriate type and name, then give the first input a placeholder. So just the first one. Input placeholder equals enter name here. Okay. Plus ultra. Step 22. Even though you added a placeholder to the first input element in the previous lesson, this is actually not a best practice for accessibility. Too often, users confuse the placeholder text with an actual input value. They think there is already a value in the input. Remove the placeholder text from the first input, relying on the label being the best practice. So let's remove that. All right. Arguably, DOB is not descriptive enough. This is especially true for visually impaired users. One way to get around such an issue without having to add visible text to the label is to add text only a screen reader can read. Append a span element with a class of SR only to the current text content of the third label element. Wouldn't it just be easier to use what I put, which was birth date? To the current text content. So span class equals SR only. Oh, screen reader only. Right? And then close that span. You should set the span after the text. Okay, so cut. All right. Within the span element, add the text date of birth. So here we're going to add date of birth. Oh, I'm not supposed to put parentheses. There we go. I would just take out the DOB to begin with. Like, that just makes it more confusing, but that's me. The SR only text is still visible. There is a common pattern to visually hide text for only screen readers to read. This pattern is to set the following CSS properties. Use the above to define the SR only class. So SR only position absolute width 1 pix. Am I supposed to use all of this? Oh, that's -1. Overflow. Let's see. I don't think that's right. You should use the dot .cr. Okay, I forgot the dot. All right. Within the second section element, add 2 div elements. With a class of question block. class equals question block. Then within each div question block element, add a p element with the text of incrementing number starting at 1 and one field set element of a class with a class of question. So it says add 2 div elements. So this class equals question block, right? And that's closed. And then it says then within each div question block, add 1 p element with the text of incrementing numbers starting at 1, but it doesn't say where to end. It doesn't say where to end that, so we're going to do field set let's see if that's right. You should nest 1 p element within each div question block element. Nest 1 p element within, there is a p element. Alright, let's delete that and add a p element here. You should give the second p element a text of 2. Okay. Oh, I see what it means now. You should nest 1 field set element within each div question block element. So field set, which is what I thought, but I still might be wrong. Let's see. You should have the first field set element a class of question. Field set class equals question. Class equals question. Okay. Submit and go forward. Each field set will contain a true-false question. Within each field set, nest 1 legend element. So within the field set, legend, and 1 UL element with 2 options. So UL LI that looks horrifying, so let's fix that. You should nest 1 UL element within the first field set element. That is in there. And then there's list items. Field set. UL's in there. I think this legend is not supposed to be wrapped in there, I guess. Let's see if that's right. You should nest 1 legend within the second field set element. So let me just copy this here because I think this is going to be the same. Okay, and that was right. Give each field set an adequate name attribute. Then give both unordered lists a class of answer lists. Finally, use the legend to caption the content of the field set by placing a true-false question as the text content. Each field set an adequate name attribute. So name equals question 1. Name equals question 2, right? each one has a name. Then give both unordered lists a class. Class equals answers list. Class equals answers list. Check that. You should give the first legend element text content. Oh, I gotta give it a name. Would you recommend free code camp to a friend? Do you plan to continue using free code camp after the HTML/CSS course? Check it, and there we go. To provide the functionality of the true-false questions, we need a set of inputs which do not allow both to be selected at the same time. Within each list element, so we got list element, nest one label element, and within each label element, nest one input element with the appropriate type. So within each list element, nest one label element, label equals true. That's not right. Okay, so I think this has to be label. And then input with the appropriate type. So for the input, we're gonna need input type equals radio. I think that's what we want it to be. So let me just take this, copy, paste. Congratulations. So now we still didn't make it so that they can't both be selected, but we'll work on that. Add an ID to all of your radio inputs so you can link your labels to them. Give the first one an ID of, add an ID to all of your radio inputs. So input type, we're going to do ID equals Q1A1. Give the rest of them IDs of, okay, so that's 1. Input type radio. ID equals Q1A2. And then here we need to do ID equals Q2A1. And then here we need to do Q2A2. All right. Although not required for label elements with a nested input, it is still best practice to explicitly link a label with its corresponding input. Now, add a for attribute to each of your 4 labels that links the label to its corresponding radio input. So label for Q1 A1, label for Q1 A2. Oh, wait a second. put a slash right there because I said to add it to the label. For Q2 A1, I might be doing the wrong thing. For Q2 A2. Oh, that was just the closing of the input. Got it. Alright. Give the label elements text such that the input comes before the text. Then give the input elements a value matching the text. The text should either be true or false. So give the label elements text. So true, false. I don't think that's right. Well, it says give the third one. True, false. That feels wrong. You should give the first input a value matching the label text content. So you should give the first input. So input value equals true. Is that right? Yep, I guess so. Value equals false. Value equals true. Value equals false. There we go. Alright guys, we are on step 32. We're going to go ahead and end this episode here, but we're going to continue on building our quiz on the next episode, and I thank you guys for hanging out, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye!